Hi, thanks for tuning in to Sweet Life. I'm Natasha, and today I am back at it with a recipe for a ribeye roast. This ribeye roast recipe, it's actually quite simple to put together. It just requires a little bit of prep, but it's nice enough for a fancy Sunday dinner, a special occasion, or even a holiday meal. You might have had ribeye roasts while out at like a nice restaurant or something like that, where it can actually be quite pricey. Granted, purchasing the meat is a more expensive option than some other meats, but for about the price that you would pay for a dinner, or maybe a little bit more than what you might pay for a dinner out, you actually get a whole ribeye roast, and you can get like multiple servings out of it. So it's nice for, let's say, to make and to have some leftovers, or if you have like a few people gathered, it can be like a nice dinner party option for a small gathering, or even just for a night with that special someone. Add in some sides and a simple salad, nice glass of wine, and you have a really impressive dinner that comes together quite easily and tastes really great. This ribeye roast, it's packed with flavor from a really nice marinade that I put together. And then even after cooking, I serve it with a very simple herb and butter garlic sauce. Really, really good. Very nice moist meat. Very flavorful. Comes together for a really nice dinner. Let's get into it.
So here I have some prime rib that I purchased. This is about 4 pounds. And really I wanted the standing rib roast, but when I went it was like slim pickings, right? And I went I think about a week or so before Christmas. And this was all I was able to get.
So now I'm going to just start prepping the meat. And really, that's just trimming off some of the fat. Not all of it, just a bit to get it kind of reasonably even thickness, but to remove like some of it so it's not overly thick, because I want the fat to baste the meat and help keep it moist as it cooks, but I don't want to have like a huge chunk of fat on the meat or like a super greasy gravy going on. So just trimming off some of the fat, but leaving behind some of it, just enough to baste it. And beyond that, all I'm going to do is just having it there in the bowl, add a bit of vinegar, a little bit of water, and I'll let it just sit for a bit, because that's what we do. We wash meat in my house. You don't have to in yours. That's your choice. And so just let it sit for a few minutes once I have the vinegar on it. Rinse it off, and from there, it's just on to seasoning it. Okay, so I've poured off the vinegar and water, just rinse the meat, and now I'm going to season it. Pretty simple. Onion powder, black pepper, paprika, seasoning salt, and garlic powder. And from there, I'm just going to mix it together, pretty much making a rub. And this is what we're going to use to season the meat. You want to get it nicely blended together. And so from there, it's really just a matter of seasoning the meat. I'm going to do this in 2 parts. I'm going to start with the dry rub that we just put together and just get it all over the meat. But there's also going to be a wet part. Starting with the dry rub, it's really just sprinkling it over the meat, taking the time to rub it in, making sure that I get it everywhere, right? That's why I'm separating the two, because I don't want like the dry seasonings to clump up or anything like that. I want to be able to make sure that I really take my time and work it into the meat, cover every bit of the meat, every bit of the meat. I repeated it for a reason, because you want to make sure that you have good flavor throughout. You don't want one part that's like very well seasoned and another that's like bland or less seasoned. So doing this in 2 parts helps ensure that we take our time and fully coat the meat with the dry seasoning. And that's even putting it on its side, rubbing it in on the sides, not just the top and the bottom, but really taking your time and seasoning our roast. From there, I'm now going to add my wet seasoning, which is just the blended seasoning that we use in my family for seasoning meat and some other items as well. This is like aromatics reloaded because we have some garlic and onion powder. But then within the wet seasoning, you now have fresh onion, minced garlic that has been blended together with a little bit of scallion and things like that, a bit of celery, just to add even more flavor. And I do it in 2 parts because I don't want the dry seasonings to clump up and end up stuck on one part of the meat, or like to have a hard time evenly distributing it over the meat. So I take my time, apply the dry part first, come back after with the wet, and just rub the whole thing down. And this is going to get good flavor from marinating in these seasonings, right? So you don't have to do it like weeks in advance, but I would recommend overnight in a pinch, but I think a few days or so in the fridge would be perfect. So get yourself together. You can buy the roast like a week in advance, especially because roasts seem to be very popular for Christmas. Get it in advance so you have it there. It's in the fridge. It's ready. Rather than you go to the store at the last minute and you can't get any. So you get your roast, you season it up like a few days before Christmas, put it in the fridge, let it sit, and then on Christmas Day, you put it in the oven, or if your family celebrates on Christmas Eve, more like it, put it in the oven. It's one less thing to worry about. It's from your marinade into the oven just to roast for a bit, and you're good to go. It helps to ensure that you get a very well seasoned ribeye roast.
Okay, so here I have my boneless ribeye roast, and I am going to tie it with some kitchen twine, so that way when it's in the oven cooking, it holds together nicely. Right, you don't want this, it's a nice cut of meat, you don't want it to fall apart. You want it to hold together until it's finished cooking, so that way you can slice it, it'll come out in nice slices. So originally, I'd planned, and you can see some remnants of it, I'd planned to pan sear this, but it was a little bit unwieldy to handle because it's like big and whatnot. So instead, I changed my mind about that. What I'm going to do is do it completely in the oven. I'm going to cut some pieces of kitchen twine. So I've cut one piece, which I think should be enough to wrap around and tie. And I'm just going to use this as a guide to cut about 1, 2, 3, maybe like 3 more pieces. So just matching up the ends and hold it until I get to the other end. All right, and then just holding it here and just matching up the ends again. Hold it, and actually where this loops, I'm just going to take the kitchen shears and cut it. So now I have 2 complete pieces. Match up the other end close to the ball. Hold it, stretch it one more time. And now at the loop end, cut there, and I've now got 4 pieces of twine. And just cut at the ball end now. And with that, I've got 4 pieces of twine that are roughly about the same length. Okay? Okay? And I'm going to start going this way, the long way first. And then I'm going to go the short way. I'll tie it in place and then I'll cut the excess string. So with the longer pieces, I'm just going to lift the meat and just tie it off. And it doesn't have to be precise.
but I'm aiming for it to be about an inch or so. And actually the rest of these pieces of string I'm going to take and put on the pan so I don't have to worry about touching the counter with my hands. Now then, for the shorter pieces, these I'm going to take and go the other way. Actually, I think I'm going to go, no, I'll go over the first one and go under the second. Okay, and this I'm going to tie. And you can see by drawing it tight, and especially because I've woven it into the first set of strings, that it pulls it together. Okay. I'm actually going to shift this down a little bit that way, give myself some room. So I have a roasting pan with a rack in it, and I'm just going to take this and place it ever so gently right in the middle. Actually, I think I'm going to go this way. Right? No. I'm going to go this way, because I think it's holding it more securely that way. Alright, and so with the fat side up, this is now going to go into the oven. And so like I said, I have a 500-degree oven going, so the fat is going to render out, and as it cooks off, you're going to have that fat dripping down the meat. It's going to help to keep it nice and moist. And yeah, you know, starting it out at high temperature, it's going to render that fat really quickly. And part of why we put it in a rack, in a roasting pan, is that I don't really want it sitting in the fat, right? You want the air to be able to get all around it, to circulate all around it, to get like a nice crust on the outside. We don't really want it sitting in the fat where it's just going to soak all of that up. You want it to be basted in the fat, but it's not like a confit or something like that. So this is now going to go into the oven. And actually, just to avoid any burning, I'm going to put just a little bit of water at the bottom of the pan. So here we have a pot where I am just melting some butter. First, I'm going to add some garlic, oregano, a little basil, give it a stir, some fresh parsley, and some fresh cilantro, a pinch of salt. So here I have my roast. I cooked it in the oven for 15 minutes at 500 degrees just to kind of brown the outside. And then I lowered the temperature to 350 degrees and cooked it for about an hour and 10 minutes. You can adjust according to the level of doneness that you like. I like things more like medium well to well done. So I just pulled this out the oven so I can check the temperature. Alright, and this here is now my roast. And I'm going to go into the thickest part and check the temperature. So now then, this is at about 136, 137, which is a little too low for me. I actually want to take it up to more like 160, 165. So it doesn't have to be quite well done, but more like a medium. So I'm looking for it to be at about 60. I'm gonna put this back in the oven for just a bit longer. Alright, so here we have the roast out of the oven, and I'm just gonna start snipping the twine to remove it. And the grain is going this way, so we're gonna go. It's not looking too shabby. At the table, we just trim off the fat. Tuning in. To ensure you don't miss any episodes, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and check out my cooking at home playlist. Go ahead and click that thumbs up button if you like what you saw, and go ahead and share it on social media.